Well, friends, we are gathered at a time of tragedy and very difficult moment for our topics today, public discourse.
That's true.
And Professor George and Professor West have asked if they could say a word about that before we begin our conversation.
Yes, thank you, Chris. Filling in, Cornel.
Oh, absolutely. Perfect.
Sorry about that noise. We did try to sound check, but there we go. Is that better?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they got it.
Well, as Professor Collison said, we meet in the wake of a horrific tragedy. What it now seems clear was an ideological, a political assassination. We've had these in the past in our history. They're always horrific tragedies. First and foremost, of course, it's a personal tragedy. A young man, political activist, happened to be a conservative, wouldn't matter whether he's conservative or liberal, left or right. Young man, 31 years old, in a university setting, engaged in what we're engaged in here, discussion, debate, dialogue, murdered, leaving behind a young widow and two small children's personal tragedy, unimaginable. And of course, we grieve for the family and pray for the family. But it's not merely a personal tragedy. It's first and foremost and above all a personal tragedy. But it's a tragedy for the country. It has public significance. It throws in sharp relief the extreme polarization that we're now experiencing as a society, where so many people are losing the ability to think of and regard each other as fellow citizens with whom we disagree, but rather falling into the trap, and it's a trap that's deadly for Republican democracy, of regarding and treating one's fellow citizens with whom one disagrees as enemies to be destroyed. Again, it doesn't matter whether it's right or left. None of that matters. What matters is if we're to preserve this grand experiment in ordered liberty and Republican government, then we are going to have to restore civil discourse, restore civic friendship. By civic friendship, I mean an understanding shared across the board, transmitted from parents to children, from teachers to students, in which we do regard each other not as enemies to be destroyed when we disagree, but as friends, bound together in the common pursuit of truth, the common pursuit of justice, though we may see it differently. We may have deep, profound disagreements. Still we're friends. You might recall how Lincoln closed his first inaugural address with secession and civil war looming on the horizon. He said, "I'm loath to close. We must not be enemies. We're friends. And surely, if we stick to it, if we refuse to become enemies, then we will be touched by the better angels of our nature." And I think that's what we have to pray for in light of the horrific killing of Charlie Kirk. I'll now turn it over to Cornel to say a word, and Cornel, you might also add our personal engagement with.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we had an interview with Brother Charlie back in late April. It went on for a good hour. We had a high-quality dialogue with that brother. And you can imagine, the whole levels of disagreement with him, brother. But he's a human leader. He's made in the image and likeness of a loving and almighty God, and therefore he's endowed with a sanctity and a dignity that needs to be acknowledged, and that's true for each and every one of us. And even if Brother Charlie himself responded to certain persons in ways I'm critical of, which he did, that doesn't mean that I still can't attempt to take the moral and spiritual high roads, because it's a sense of this is how one chooses to be in the world. The love, the care, the concern across the board, across gender, race, class, and national identity, and religion. And so anytime I hear, somebody murdered, and murder is murder. And a lot of people don't want to linger with that. Murder's murder. Be Brother Charlie, it could be Sudan, it could be Gaza, it could be in Colombia, South Carolina, it could be in Ethiopia. Human beings are precious. So my first response was to pray for Sister Herrick, his precious wife, two priceless kids. For the rest of their lives, they've got to come to terms with what took place there in Utah. So, and that's very personal and existential. It has little to do with politics, little to do with ideology. It's at the human connection. Then we have a discussion of his legacy and things he said and so forth and so on. And even the dialogue he had with us, one, just like yourself, he read the book.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a breakthrough these days. That's almost a revolutionary act for a lot of folks who have broadcast. You know, they just have your own, look at your picture and like your suit. Now let's talk about the text. Well, you haven't read it. The brother actually read the text. I think he asked me to be on too after that.
He did. It was very interesting. He didn't have to invite us onto the show. He knew that I, though a conservative, I'm a conservative in somewhat different stripe. I've been critical of President Trump. He's critical of people who are critical of President Trump. And of course, very distant politically from Brother Cornel. But he invited us onto the show because he had read the book, he was interested in the book, and he wanted to engage with us. And he treated us both, you every bit as much as me,
Absolutely.
with enormous respect and kindness. He listened to what we had to say. And then, as Cornel was just saying, when we finished the dialogue, he said, Brother West, we're pretty distant from each other ideologically, but I'd like an opportunity to talk with you one-on-one. So it was actually inviting me to leave the stage. And they'd get together on another occasion, and the two of them could do some civil discourse. It's pretty rough and tumble. So
I'd love to.
Who was getting that?
I hate to have Brother Robert just drop out like that. But, absolutely. And then I must say, too, I did hear my dear sister Candace Owen, who was his best friend in the world. They had a sisterhood. They had a brotherhood. And on the deeply conservative side of the ideological spectrum, but the level of human interaction and humane relation was actually quite powerful. Till it was quite powerful. And of course, they had breaks over the Middle East and so forth, but they remained very deep brother, sister, friendly at this day. And so I appreciate you allowing us to just say a few words about this particular moment, because it's not just a personal thing. It has much to do with what we'll be talking about, which is the deep spiritual decay and moral decrepitude of our culture.
We were talking in the green room about whether this really does represent what people, I know it's an overused term, but I'm going to use it anyway, does represent what people call an inflection point. And I'm inclined to think that it does. It's concentrated the public's attention. Now, we've had political violence against both Democrats and Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Recently, of course, there was the murder of that Democratic representative in Minnesota, her husband, not just some Melissa correctly. And then on the other side, there was the shooting of Steve Scalise, and we've had so many of these other political motivated, ideologically motivated violent incidents. But there's something about this one that makes me feel like I'm back in 1968. It was just in middle school, what we then in those days called junior high. I don't know why they don't use that term anymore. They use middle school, but we called it junior high. Yeah. So yeah, bring it back, right? Bring back junior high. It's like reading books. Bring that back. Bring back junior high. But I was in junior high in 1968, and when Dr. King was assassinated,
Oh, Lord have mercy.
that felt like an inflection. But it turned out to be it wasn't. And then, of course, followed almost just 2 months later, Robert F. Kennedy. And I'm feeling like this is an inflection point. And I'll tell you something, that is not a hopeful feeling. And we just can't take that sitting down. It is up to us to turn this thing around. Now, we talk a lot in our book, although we wrote the book, long before these events, But what we're talking about in the book is really relevant to turning this thing around. And I think that's what these dialogues and discussions, and it's really what the center for American civic leadership and public discourse has, if I can give you your mission, Chris. Yeah.
It has its mission.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the timing is just downright providential.
Absolutely.
Because these are the kind of times that test our souls in terms of our civic courage, our civic sensitivity, our civic leadership, how we enter public space without humiliation and try to engage in serious disagreement, but mediate it with a respect so that you can still take a stand in terms of what you believe, but also have enough humility to learn and listen from other people.